So the purpose of today is actually for you to understand exactly what you've got to do for us to finish this topic. You've done the major assessment items, being the work breakdown structure and the identification of stakeholders and the allocation of resources, but there's still a couple of things we've got to do to finish this one. So, as I'm saying, it's the conclusion of this subject. So what you've completed is you've done the full work breakdown structure. Now, you should have already delivered this. If you haven't, then you need to do it. Okay? Because what it does is, with 26 of you, for me to assess every item, if you delay it, then it just makes it far harder for me to pick it up and then continue on with the next things. I've tried to do it so that every 2 weeks you're delivering something smaller. I know the work breakdown structure can be quite substantial, but every 2 weeks you'll be delivering something, and it's not a big item. I can leave it and do all 22 items at the end of the subject, or at the end of the 22 weeks if you want, but it will just make it a nightmare for you. So I'd rather give you little bits and pieces to do continuously. So you've done the work breakdown structure, you've done the full clarification of stakeholders. Now, with quite a few of you, we're not giving you feedback on what you've told me. The stakeholders are the things that we've often not quite, you've got stakeholders in there, but not a full list. Quite often you've got stakeholders allocated the resources that are going to work on your project, but it's not stakeholders that are going to be impacted by what you're doing, or the people who are going to be influenced or influencing the project. Mel, do you mind if I talk about yours for a bit? Mel's project is she mentioned the start-up of a business for scuba diving, tourist type activities. What we call jumping jaws, which I thought was quite funny. Now, Mel's work breakdown structure was great. She did a really good job of breaking down all the tasks and acknowledging environmental requirements and the type of students and the training and the equipment required, etc. And even though she had the resources allocated to the responsibility, she hadn't included the full list of the EPA, the people who would govern or maybe audit people getting off the boat and making sure the numbers get back on the boat, all that sort of thing. So it's the consideration of the stakeholders that aren't actually doing the job. It's the ones who will influence whether your project goes ahead or not, or who may control how you do your business in the future. So all of those stakeholders need to be considered, not just the people who are going to work on the job. Okay, so that's something that I saw consistently through a lot of what everyone was doing. So you need to be mindful of all the stakeholders, internal and external. So you've identified from that group of stakeholders, you've all taken the group of resources that are going to work on your project and you've allocated them to the tasks. Okay? And of course you've all set up a source area on your USB stick, haven't you? Yeah. Okay. Alright, now this is Todd's USB stick, USB memory stick. And I haven't been through anything more with Todd than I've been through with all of you. So you can see in here that he has a source area. And in here, he hasn't got all of them, but this is where he would save all the templates that I've given you or that you get from where you work. Okay? This is what will be one of your assessment items. As I said, the NTIs have specifically stated in all their requirements that you will prove your competency in multiple complex projects. So you can either set up the source area and put all the tools in there that you're going to use from now on and that you can build on during the course of your life as a project manager, or you can do 2 work breakdown structures, 2 lots of position descriptions, 2 of this, 2 of that, 2 of something else. I'm trying to save you work. So create yourself a source area if you haven't already. It is something that you will be assessed on progressively. I'd like to be able to see, if you've done it, then we'll tick it off today. If you haven't, you need to do it by next week. Create a directory and put the blank templates and the tools you will use in it. Then create another area where you create your assignments, and when you're filling in those templates and using them, put them in that directory. So you leave the blanks, you leave the templates on their own. Does that make sense? And then as you're building your assignments, then they're actually in their own directory for week 4 or HR or however you want to do it. But make sure that the templates and the tools that you're going to use, we can audit and say, yes, that person is capable of doing complex multiple projects because they have the tools in place and they've proven once that they can use it. In summary, what is actually outstanding is that we need to look at scopes briefly. You're laughing at me? No. And we need to look at position description. Now, you've already got position description templates that are online. Yes. Yeah. One of the assessment items is that you do 1 position description for one of the resources in your project.
Just one.
So you need to do 1 position description. Now, as I say, don't waste my time. do a decent one. Pick somebody who will actually matter to your project. You'll need to detail their qualifications, their impacts, their experience that's required, and all the rest of it. Now, you've got a template, you can use the one I've given you, or you can go and get one of your own. I would prefer to see that you are trying to recruit somebody for a particular role. Like, for example, going back to Mel's project, Jumping Jaws, she might need to have a particular qualified dive instructor. And she might predetermine what type of experience that person might want, what marine expertise they have, blah, blah, occupational health and safety, things like that. So I would rather you write it from the perspective of recruiting or finding a particular, for example, those of you who've done construction type things. I want a builder who's a class 1 builder who can build up to 3 levels, who has a current induction safety certificate, who does this and blah, blah, and then who I can get 3 testimonials from. You know, like that's the sort of thing that you need to look at to fill in this position description. We also need to look at a scope. Now, some of you have already given me a scope, and that's okay, but I will show you the one I've done, the sorts of things that I want to make sure that you include. The next subject we're going to go through is going to be timelines, which is looking at the Gantt charts and the impacts and going from end to end and milestones and the critical success path and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the HR topic, which is what we're talking about tonight, it's actually looking at the scope and putting the stakeholders and certain information into the scope document. There's a whole topic on scope, and the templates I've given you online are actually in that subject, but I'm going to go through some of the very basics so that, again, by the end of next week, you'll give me the beginning of your scope document. Not the full thing, but just the beginning of it.